stocks worsening, but let's talk about some festive cheer, and let's talk whether there is some festive cheer or not in the market, at least as far as the auto world is concerned. Mr. Shashank Srivastava, the Senior Executive Officer, Marketing and Sales from Maruti Suzuki, joins us on the show. Shashank, hi, good to have you on board. First up, let's talk about Navratri. Just got over yesterday. Tell us about how the sales really have been, because if you go by the newspaper reports, seems like Navratri has been flat this time.
Yeah, so if you look at the actual retail sale, compare with the Navratras of last year, they would appear flat. Roughly in the industry, about 2.2 lakh vehicles were retailed last year, and similar numbers have emerged this year. However, the exact comparison may be a little misleading, because the first 3 days of the Navratra last year was also in the month end. On the 26th September, Navratra started last year. So 26, 27, 28, 29, 30, the first 5 days of Navratra, also the month end. Month end normally gives you a very big jump in retails as the cases close, on the financing side largely. And therefore, the last year number would have had that push up. Whereas this year, the Navratra started from the 15th of October, and that push would not have been evident. So I think a better period is to compare the Shraddh plus the Navratra, that is the immediate period preceding the Navratras. In that period, roughly about 3.3 lakh vehicles were sold this year, and about 2.83 lakh last year. So that's a growth of 16%. So that depends on how you look at it. And yes, but the sales have been pretty good, I would say.
Okay, that's on the festive sale. But could you give us an overall sales momentum so far? How has that been? What's your take on the rest of the festive season? Will the inventory drop materially?
Shraddh, the retails don't happen as much, but the people build up stock in anticipation of good retails in the Navratras and the subsequent period up till Bhai Dooj. Now, you are right, the inventory in the industry had crossed 400,000 units at the beginning of Navratra. It has come down. And I think by the month end, we would see a stock levels of roughly around 300,000 units, 305,000 units. Remember, we started the month with about 330,000 units in the industry. So actually, the inventory level is expected to come down from the beginning of the month, although at this time, it may be higher because the retail till the month end is still on.
And then, what about the discounts? Is it going to be higher than usual or lower? What is the trend indicating now?
So on the discount front, obviously there are vehicles where you see a good discount, especially at the lower end of the spectrum. You have the Alto, the Celerio, the Espresso, and so on. And that was, but I don't expect it to go up. Actually, I expect the discounts from now on to come down in those vehicles. The reason why you had seen a higher level of discount in those models was that our production was much more than what the demand was. And the reason for that was that we were going through a semiconductor component issue, where we were not able to produce some of the other vehicles, and we had a long waiting list for some vehicles like the XL6 or the Ertiga or the Brezza or the Vitara, the Fronx, the Baleno, Desire, and so on and so forth. So we had to produce those other vehicles in excess of the demand, and that led to a higher inventory levels, and inventory levels generally determine the extent of discounts. So you saw those discounts coming in actually 3-4 months earlier, and that continued. And from now onwards, while the semiconductor issue has largely been sorted out, we have been able to produce other vehicles, as you would have seen from the production figures. And therefore, we have modulated the production of these smaller cars. And that is why I expect the inventory levels to be corrected for these models, and hence the sales promotion level also to come down in the next few months.
Okay, so that was about the domestic sales and the festive season so far and your outlook for the rest of the season. But talk to me about exports as well, because, brokerage notes were talking about how the company is looking at growing the exports to almost 3x by 2030. It was also reported that the parent, which is Suzuki, is looking at making India the export hub for some of the EV variants. Since you are in Japan, I'm sure this topic was also brought up. Talk to us about what's the outlook on overall export opportunity.
Today we had gone to the motor show, the Tokyo Motor Show, the mobility show, And yes, the EVX was shown in the Tokyo Motor Show to the world, because remember, the EVX was shown in the Indian auto show as well, and there it was the global launch. Yes, there are plans to export, as you would have read, and we are hoping to launch it in the domestic market next year. At the moment, we are making preparations regarding the charging infrastructure and the other ecosystem which is required, so that the consumers are not inconvenienced when we launch the vehicle. So yes, we have good expectations from the EVX. It's a mid SUV. It's a great product. It's got a great range as well for driving, to reduce the anxiety of the consumers on the range front. And we do hope that it will do well both in the domestic as well as in the export market.
You know what also is coming in terms of reports, and furthermore from the Delhi government side, is that they're focusing more in terms of EV. They want to transition to the EV side as well. And given that you are more into the CNG side as well, do you think this is a big risk, and how much of a risk do you see this transition of CNG to EV transition? And do you think the rest of the states also would follow?
I don't think there is any move to sort of push back CNG sales. Clearly, yes, there are measures being announced for a push up for EVs, but it's not really a push down for CNG. And CNG, remember, is also a very fuel efficient powertrain fuel. And as long as the running cost of CNG is lower compared with the gasoline or the diesel, we will find a large rate adoption of CNG. In fact, CNG adoption has gone up in the last 5 years continuously. In today, in fact, almost 25% of our products are CNG, and about 15% of the industry now is CNG, as compared with about 17.5% for diesel. Yes, EV is also separate. It's currently at around 2.4% of the industry. Yes, there would be support for EV, and I think in the intermediate period before EVs become mainstream, you would find support continuing for hybrid and CNG as well.
Okay, so you're not too perturbed. You are expecting support to continue for hybrid and CNG as well. Of course, you are in focus there because 25% of your sales come from the CNG vertical. But just before I let you go, Shashank, give me a bit of a sense on the margins going forward as well. The metal prices have cooled off. So going forward, should we expect a northward bias to margins, or will they hold steady? What's your take?
Yeah, so in the last few quarters, you would have seen there has been some softening in terms of the commodity prices, and obviously, in any OEM of an automobile, 75 to 77% of the cost structure is actually material cost. So any changes in the commodity prices downwards does help, and that's what we have seen in the last few quarters. So yes, expectedly, if this trend continues, the commodity prices have a downward trend, you would see an upward trend in terms of the margins.
Okay, thank you so much, Mr. Srivastava, for joining in with us this afternoon on Easy Now, giving us an understanding in terms of the festive season. How is that shaping up? What should we be expecting in terms of companies' margins going forward as well? But on that note, viewers,